All right, so body movement. Now I'm gonna do two videos. One is going to be like a more detailed explanation of the body movement stuff. And then I'll do like one that's like pretty express and quick. So you watch this first, and then once you get this down packed, and if you need to refer to it, just go to a quick one so you pick up on the rules. All right, so with body movement, there's a couple of key things. There's a couple of counteractions that you have to learn about. The most important thing is we always start from down up. Now, in ballet, they turn out their feet like this. Okay, so this is as turned out as I can get. This is ballet, and then in jazz they have them parallel like this. Yeah. Now in salsa, what we do is we keep our heels together. Yeah, and we have a little turnout in our feet. That's normally how salsa dancers dance. So when they're dancing like their basics, they're always a little turned out. Yeah, not too much. And they normally have their feet quite close. So every time they step, they cross their feet. Let me just adjust the camera a little bit so you can see my feet a bit better. All right, cool. Okay, so as I said, we start down up. Now the first thing I want you to do is to bend your knees. Okay, once you bend your knees, you'll see that your knees naturally tend to go over your feet. What you want to do is try to keep your knees together and push onto the ball of your foot. Now, if you keep your knees together and you bring the heel of your foot up, yeah, so go on your toes, you'll notice that the part of your body or part of your foot that the weight goes onto is the ball of the foot. Now the ball of the foot is that round bit right under your big toe and your big toe. So when you're stepping in salsa, you always want to step with the ball of the foot, yeah? So always on the inside of your toe. To be able to do that, you'd have to do something which is called winging your foot, okay? So this is a really unstable ankle. So your ankle is really unstable if your ankle is parallel to your leg. And this is really bad because this is a potential for you to turn out. What you want to do is push your ankle inwards, okay? And that automatically will bring your knee in as well, okay? So every time you step, you want to have your foot winged, so when it connects with the floor, it connects with the ball of the foot, okay? Now this is really important because this is where all your power and all your strength in salsa comes from. So every time you're like dancing and you want to like push off, everything comes from the ball of your feet. The other importance of it is that once you get into things like Suzy Q's and stuff like that, it's really important to have this back leg on the inside of the foot, yeah, rather than having it like that. Now sometimes that's when people start looking like a bit sickled and messy. Whereas if you always turn out and have the weight on the inside of your feet when you're doing your Suzy Q's or any kind of movement sort of stuff, any kind of like shine, you have like a nicer technique, you look better and you have more stability on it. All right, so let's move on. So the weight goes onto your ball of your foot. Now the first thing we're going to learn is we're going to learn about the counteraction. The first counteraction we learn is the counteraction between your hips and your feet, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is put your weight onto one side, yeah? Whether it's your left, your right, yeah? And what I want you to do is pick your foot up the floor and then try to connect with the inside of your foot. So try to connect with the ball of your foot. You're here on one. And then you're going to push through the floor and transfer your weight from this hip onto the other side. Yeah? And then you're going to repeat the same thing with the other foot. So you're going to pick up your foot, you're going to put it on the floor, transfer your weight across. So you're going to go 1, 3, 5, 7, and a 1, 3, 5, 7. A couple of important things here is make sure your feet come off the floor. 3, 5, 7. And the other thing is imagine you're really like squishing something under your feet, okay? So imagine you're really pushing the floor to transfer the weight to the other side. Pushing the floor, push the floor, okay? So here we go. 5, 6, 7, and a 1, a 3, a 5. A 7. So every time my hip is on one side, I step with the opposite foot. The other thing that kind of helps you understand about this counteraction is if you allow your body to fall onto the side that you're about to step. So you go step and step. That pushes your hip out. So you go step and step, and step, and step, and step, and step, and step, and step. And a 1, a 3, a 5, a 7, and a 1. I'll do it from the other way so you can see as well. 7 and a 1, a 3, a 5, a 7 and a 1, a 3 with the body twist. 7 and a 1, a 3, a 5, a 7 and a 1, a 3, a 5, a 7 and a 1, a 3. Now, why is this really important? It's important because if you don't learn to transfer your weight or have the weight on the opposite side of what you're stepping, you'll get people who dance salsa like this. 1, 3, 5, 7, 1, 3. So what that is when your hips and your feet are going together. Whereas when you're dancing, you always want to make sure that your weight is on the opposite side or when you're stepping, yeah? That's the correct way, and it's a more stable way of doing it, yeah? And it won't look like jerky and bouncy, all right? Cool, so next up, that's the counteraction between the feet and hips. Every step of the way, you just have to make sure you do so much practice, so this becomes like muscle memory. So this has to be so clean that it's like muscle memory in the system. So straight away, boom, 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 you know what you're doing. All right, I'm gonna come a little bit further close and put this up a little bit. Now I'm gonna talk a little bit about the upper body, okay? Now, there's three main sections in the upper body that you have to be conscious about when you're doing your body movement, okay? There's three body parts that are moving. One, and the most important one, is your shoulders, okay? It's a movement from your shoulders. Two is a movement from your rib cage, yeah? So rib cage movement. And three is a movement of your arm. Now we're going to go through shoulders and arm first, and then we'll get into the rib cage stuff, okay? Now, so with the shoulders and the arms, the rule is every time one shoulder goes forward, the opposite hand comes to it. Now, before we get there, you just have to practice your shoulder movement. So I want you to put your hand onto your hips, right? And what I want you to do is push one shoulder forward at a time. So you go one shoulder forward, and then the other one. Now, if you notice, as one shoulder goes back, the other shoulder comes forward. 1, 3, 5, 7, and a 1. 3, 5, 7, and a 1. 3, 5. Now, there's two types of movements in this. One is your shoulder blade just moving back and forth, right? And the other one is the twist of your torso. So when you're doing it, you want to twist your torso and you want to put your shoulder movement at the end of it. So you want to twist your torso, put the shoulder movement at the end of it. 1, 3, 5, 7, and a 1. A 3, a 5, a 7, and a 1. A 3, a 5, and 7, and a 1. And 3, and 5, and 7. Good. Now let's talk about the arms. Now, as I said, every time one shoulder comes forward, the opposite arm goes to it. Now, again, this is really important because if you don't get this counteraction, you get people who dance salsa like this. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. So what's happening there is when my shoulder and my arm go together, okay? But what you want to do is you want to make sure opposite shoulder comes to opposite arm. So you go 1, 3, 5, 7, and a 1. 3, and 5, and 7, and a 1. 3, 5, and 7, and a 1. 3, 5, 7, and a 1. 3, 5, 7. So again, you got to be really good at this because every time you're dancing salsa, this is your bread and butter. This is the movement that's happening. Now, really important for these elbows not to go out, okay? Not to go sideways. You want to make sure they go back and forward, because that's how your shoulders are meant to move. Your shoulders are meant to go forward and back, forward and back. So there's 1, 3, 5, 7, and a 1. 3, 5, 7, and a 1. 3, 5, 7, and a 1. 3, 5, 7. Good. Now we're going to add the rib cage to this whole thing, okay? Now the rib cage is basically moving throughout your entire body movement, right? And it's what really makes you stand out as someone who has really good movement, because it's like it's like the core moving, and then everything else is kind of like branches out from your ribcage movement, okay? Now, when you're doing ribcage, I want you to practice this just side to side without moving your hips or anything else. Your ribcage just wants to go like side and 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 side. Now, what you want to do is every time you go one side, you're going to push that shoulder forward and take your opposite hand to it. So now we go 1 and 3 and 5 and 7 and 1 and 3. And see how like my shoulder, my rib cage is moving and then my shoulder comes to it? If people find it hard with the hands and shoulders, point to the shoulder that's coming forward. That's the easiest way I've learned to explain it. Yeah, so point to the shoulder that's coming forward. Point and 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 point. So make sure you move your rib cage with it as well. 7 and 1 and 3 and 5 and 7. Cool? All right. Now next step. Now next step is to put the whole thing together. But please don't rush when you get to here. So take your time with it. Don't feel like you need to do all of it all of a sudden. Like, just practice one body part at a time. I remember when I started, I really struggled with shoulder movement. And now they're like one of my strongest assets when I'm dancing because I've worked so much on them. But take your time with one thing. So just practice your shoulder movement, shoulder movement, shoulder. This has to become like your bread and butter, yeah? When you're moving upper body, boom, 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 boom. And then later on you can add the lower body into it. Now let's put them together. Now what you want to do is every time, this is another rule, every time when you're stepping, same shoulder comes forward, rib cage goes to the same side, opposite hand connects, okay? So let's give it a try. So if I put my weight on one side, I'm going to step with the other foot and push the shoulder forward, and the opposite hand comes to it. So we go 1, and then we're going to push through and transfer our weight to the other side. 3 and 5 and 7 and 1 and 3 and 5 and 7 and 1 and 3. Notice how I'm pointing to the shoulder that's coming forward, yeah? The shoulder that's coming forward is the same as the foot that's about to step on, yeah? And the opposite hand comes to it, and my hip is on the opposite side. So 1, 3, 5, 7 and 1, 3, 5, 7. Now this is called merengue, yeah? But this is how people dance merengue. I don't know for those of you who know. Merengue is like the father and the mother of all Latin dance, okay? Now the cool thing about this merengue is that what you can do, you can pretty much insert any rhythm of the Latin dances into this. So your salsa, your bachata, your cha-cha. When it gets to like some of the zouk stuff and kizomba and stuff, it becomes a little bit different. But with all your like, you know, your salsa, your bachata, your cha-cha, this is how the body movement works, okay? Now think about it, if I'm putting a bachata in there, all I have to do is put my bachata into this formula of body movement that we have, okay? So bachata would be 1, 2, 3, and tap, and 5, 6, 7, tap. Now important thing is, you're not transferring your weight on the tap, so you don't move all the way. You're just tapping, so you're just bringing the shoulder there. So you're going 1, 2, 3, tap, and then again on the same foot. 3, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, and tap, and 5, 6, 7, 8, and 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5, 6, 7, 8. To the side. 1, 2, 3, tap, and 5, 6, 7, tap, and 1, 2, 3, tap. Now for ladies, what you can do with this formula that we have, you can start extending your arms out, okay? So guys, keep it here on the frame. Ladies, extend it out. But the movement is still the same. It's just that your elbow extends out. 1, 3, 5, 7, and 1. 3, and 5, and 7, and 1, and 3, and 5. Now, if you're dancing salsa on 1, the rhythm goes 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, basic step, and 1, 2, 3, and 5, 6, 7, and 1, 2, 3, and 5, 6, 7, and 2, 3, and 5. If you're dancing salsa on 2, it goes like this. Slow, quick, quick, slow, quick, quick. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, basic. 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Now, to take it the next notch, you first have to be able to do the positions really well. So if you're dancing your basic, if I told you to stop at one point, you got to know exactly where all the alignments are, yeah? So this has to become, the staccato feel of it has to become quite second nature. Boom, 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 boom. Later on, you can start moving it a bit more and making your movements rounder, but you have to make sure you get the positions really well, okay? Because if you don't, then that's when you get people like trying to move everything and it just doesn't really look coordinated, okay? All you gotta do is just make sure you get your positions right and then go from there. Yeah, so now if you want to make things a little bit more round, yeah, so if you want to make sure that your movement's a little bit round, you start working one joint at a time. So your hips, for example, right? Normally they just go side to side to side to side. Then you can practice to take them around in a figure eight action. So you can go around, around, around. It's a little bit more for the ladies, yeah? And they can round the hip movements. Your rib cage at the beginning just goes side to side to side to side. Then you can practice to go 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees, 45 degrees. Yeah, so make it a bit more like figure eight action. Yeah, your shoulders go forward and back. Yeah, then you can start making it touch, up and around, touch, up and around, touch, up and around, touch, up and around. Touch, up and around, touch. When you put it all together, it looks like this. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3. If you're dancing on 2, 6, 7, that's how you do it. 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. If you're dancing on 1, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7, 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, 7. Cool? Now, in the next video, what I'm going to do, I'm going to break down some of your shines, yeah, like really basic shines, with all these fundamental body movements, okay?